Good morning, everyone. It's Hanifa Menon from hearthealthbrainhealth.com, encouraging healthy grieving and mindful actions. Today, I have this lovely quote that I came across. It's by Gao Xingjian, and the quote says, "Walk where your heart leads you. There are no restrictions and no burdens. Walk where your heart leads you. There are no restrictions and no burdens." Now, how wonderful does that sound, right? Doesn't that sound easy? It's interesting that this quote came to me today because I have just recently reposted a newsletter that I had written a few years ago from the best conference I've ever been to. And I'll put the link for that newsletter just below. And I met an author named Steve Taylor who wrote a book called The Leap. And the information that he puts into this book is actually quite fascinating, and I actually quite agree with it. So, in that, he discusses, as many speakers, authors, philosophers have discussed before him, but puts it together very nicely about the fall of man. So, when we think about, do you remember a time? We talk about this. You might not remember it. I don't think any of us really remember this, but there would have been a time in caveman days that if a person was angry, they'd yell, they might club something. If a person was scared, they'd hide. If they were hungry, they'd eat. If they were sleepy, they'd sleep. And it was simpler times, right? So we all think about, those were such simpler times. And I so wish we were back in simpler times. So, what's happened is consciousness has evolved and expanded. And with consciousness expanding, we learn a lot more. So as we learn, we start second guessing things. So we're not in the caveman brain days where it's just as simple as this is what I need and this is what I do. Now we have more of a thinking process behind this. So even if you want to cross a street, you might look both ways. You might think twice about what you're going to eat because maybe it's got too many calories, or maybe you know that you're sensitive to a particular food that you're craving right now. And all of these things are really safe, right? It's we've learned something that's then protecting us. We're not going to get hit by a car so easily, and we're not going to get ourselves not feeling well because we're eating the wrong foods. So that's a really good way. What about the other things that we are pushing aside? So this is what I want to talk about in this video today is about our self-limiting restrictions. So when we are thinking about, I'd really like to do this. So we can be excited about, I'd really like to do this. It could be as simple as, I'd really like to go into this profession when someone is graduating from high school and thinking about what's the profession they want to be in. I'd really like to do this. And then in a very short time, there's the, oh, mom and dad wouldn't be happy with this, or how much money will this make? Or is that really what I want? Or maybe I like this or this or this, because now we have a lot more choices to choose from too, right? And this happens throughout our lives that we start second guessing, usually something new or different that we would like to do. And this is, of course, something that I help train, brain retrain patients with or clients with these days. And it's so important to me to make sure that people understand who they are and what they're doing or what their goal may be or what their dreams might be and what might be the self limiting restrictions that they're putting on. So I always recommend that people think about what they want to do and why. So why? Why is this important? Why is this the goal or the desire that you have right now? And many people don't know. Some people will say this will make me more money, or this will be fun, or this will be interesting. And of course, fun and interesting gets the least priority. If this makes me more money, that might get more priority. And that tells us about how our brain is thinking too. Oftentimes, it's the thing that's drawing your heart, the thing that feels like, I just really wish I could do this. I'd really like to do this. That's a wonderful place to start. So remember, the quotation is walk where your heart leads you. There are no restrictions and no burdens. So again, when we're not complicating it with our thinking process, which again can be very helpful in terms of safety, but sometimes very restricting in terms of potential. So I'd like to try to encourage people to think outside of the box a little bit and understand the whys of why they would want to do this. Now, sometimes people start giving themselves a not good time if they're saying, well, just because it would make me happy. And what's wrong with that? I think that's fantastic. If something that you could do would make you happy, then it's a matter of figuring out how this might be possible to do. So that's beautiful. Most people will talk themselves out at that point. They'll say, yeah, it would make me happy, but these are all the people it won't make happy. This is all the disappointment that I will create. And maybe I myself don't like it. So all of that second guessing really restricts a person. I thought I would share a story with you today. And this is kind of on this thinking because it came to mind when I was thinking about talking to you today regarding my own history that I actually feel like I feel pretty good about doing these sorts of steps. And I think it's only because I've taken these baby steps in my history that makes me a little bit more confident to take new steps this way. So, and I say that questioningly because confident today could be low confidence tomorrow. But today, when I think of something that I love to do, I can tell you I'm ready to do it. So I thought back about many years ago, where I was graduating from the naturopathic college. And I remember at that time, I really thought I couldn't work for the summer because I really wanted to spend a good couple of months studying for my licensing exams. And if I didn't get my licensing exams completed and passed, and there were 14 exams at that time over 3.5 days, I wouldn't be able to practice. And if I couldn't practice, I wouldn't be able to pay my student loans and all of that sort of thinking. So I knew I wanted to have about 2 months to just study for these exams. But I was also working at a health food store at that time, and I was also seeing clients at the naturopathic college at that time as a student. And as a student, students are signed off by supervisors, which are licensed naturopathic doctors, recently licensed, and they are able to practice with clients. So both a learning time and a wonderful time to be able to be supervised by people who are already in the profession. So that was wonderful. And then I'm working at a health food store. So I think I don't want to keep working at the health food store for the last 2 months before my exam. And even though I'm working in the summer, I only want to work for part of the summer. What can I do? Now my patients started letting me know that they don't want to see anyone else, even while I'm waiting for my licensing. They don't want to see anyone else. And I'm telling them I can't see them because I won't be licensed for the summer. So school is ending and I'm not licensed. I asked the health food store owner if perhaps I could see the clients that I've already built up at the naturopathic college as a student still at the health food store because there were NDs working there. And if those NDs could oversee and supervise my work, I would be able to allow these patients to continue seeing me. And he was thrilled with the idea. He said that's a fantastic use of my time and that would be totally fine with him. I would still be able to work at the health food store for the days that I was there and see my clients in this regard. I was thrilled. And had I not thought of maybe this would be a possible way I could still continue seeing my clients and also make some money, even when I stop working regularly full time at that health food store, this would be fantastic. I went home, I was walking on a cloud, and the next day I come in to work at the health food store, and there's a big circle of all of my colleagues at the store. And I thought, oh, the owner was sitting there too, and he wasn't often at the store. So I thought, oh, he's going to share this with everyone to make sure that we're all on the same page of knowing what I'm going to be doing. And sure enough, it seems like the conversation had been had before I got there, in fact. So it was actually more of an intervention. So if you can imagine, my classmates were not so happy. So people who I was working with, my coworkers, were not so happy about this request, which had been received so well the day before, but not so well this day. This day, everyone was a little bit upset that they were not getting the same privilege that I was getting. And the NDs that were already working there might have felt like they didn't want to do that extra work of supervising me. The colleagues were a little bit upset that they're not going to be able to see their clients because that wasn't going to be an option for everyone. And so the decision was that Hanifa can't do this either. And I remember being floored. I was so shocked and not so happy. But I can say I handled it fine. It was okay. It was what it was. And I still had a job and I still had, 1 more month to see my patients and still work at this place. So, and that was seeing my patients at the naturopathic college as the student. Well, I figured I didn't know how I was going to pay even my rental for those months, those 2 months of not working. I had no idea how I was going to pay for that expense. But I figured I'd figured something out in time. I will figure it out. And only a couple of weeks into making that decision and having that discussion at the store, the clients that I saw most regularly at the naturopathic college contacted me. It was a family, and they contacted me to let me know that they did not want to see anyone else. I had to make sure I told all of my patients at that time that I wouldn't be able to see them while I was waiting for licensing, and if they wanted to wait for me, it would be 4 months before I'd be able to see them, and that was totally fine. I would be back in practice when I could practice again. And these clients called me to let me know that no, they wanted to see me. They didn't care if I had a license. They didn't want receipts. They were just going to pay me for my services, period. And on top of that, I did not have a car. I did not drive. So they would drive out from Thornhill to downtown Toronto to pick me up, bring me back to their place for me to give them treatments, and then drive me back home. Can you imagine this? And this happened regularly through that entire summer. I don't remember whether I saw them weekly or I saw them every 2 weeks, but I can tell you, I have no idea how that beautiful experience happened and unfolded. And I will say that I feel that it's because I put my intention into this is going to be okay. And if I was going to try something, I tried something at the health food store and it went the way it was supposed to go. And yet I was still supposed to be able to pay my bills for my rent. And this came up without any expectation, any sort of demand, but because I was acting from my heart. Something comes in and helps us in those times. So some people would say God, I say the universe, something happens and things fall into place. And I want you to know that that sort of thinking and that awareness has served me well for my life. It was so neat to just remember that memory today, and I wanted to share it with you. So I hope today, after this video, you spend 5 minutes to think about what are the things that you're dreaming of and perhaps talking yourself out of because it seems like it's just not possible. And can you stay in the space of something will work out? I know it will. I hope that you do. And I hope that you remember transform your mind and transform your life. Have a great day, everyone.